You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
What's up, Coaches Nation? We're here coming at you for another amazing episode of the Coach's Journey podcast. We have a really cool guest today that you will definitely want to stick around for. She's got some amazing experiences that she's had as a coach, and she does some really powerful work, and she has some really powerful challenges, I think, for all of us as coaches, that we're not here just to help our clients, but we're here also to serve ourselves, because if we serve ourselves, we can better serve our clients. So we're going to have some really cool conversations around that. And we've got our co-host Faisal here, as always, in his black shirt, looking amazing.
Thank you.
All right, before we jump into all of the amazingness that we have planned for today, let's talk about wins. And we usually like our guest of honor to go first. And it's a win that you had, whether it's business or personal or whatever you'd like to share with us.
Oh, so I've had a few wins, actually. My biggest win was actually taking my child back to college this weekend. And it went smoothly. And I just felt so much love, and so did he. So that was a big win for us. But my own personal win is just opening myself up to a new perspective. And recently I came back from 5 weeks of studying in Europe. And my biggest win was that I was putting too much pressure on myself. I wasn't giving myself time to be during the day. I was working 12-hour days, building my business, but I didn't spend any time just being. So as soon as I got back, I added my from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. I am just being. And that means whatever I want it to be. I give myself permission to just lay down and look at my phone, but I also give myself permission to just meditate or just listen to music. So that was really huge for me. It was mind shifting, very, very much so.
That's incredible. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And what I heard there was being versus doing.
Yes, because I'm a doer, very much so. And we all know that in order to do and to be creative and innovative, you need to just be still and just listen. And that was the biggest win that I got this summer. Yeah.
That's incredible. And a part of Zoraida, she shares a part of her journey. We came across each other too in Europe too. And that's
Yes.
where I met Zoraida in Tallinn in Estonia. And we actually spent, this is really cool. We spent a whole day together. And I think I've shared part of it with Dr. Sherry, but literally it was Peter, Zoraida, and I, and none of us knew each other, but we literally from 9:30 in the morning to I think 9 or 10 at night, we were walking around the whole town, sharing, discussing, and just kind of going deeper into what we're doing. And we had some cool realizations. And I even actually posted a video of all three of us in our page too, because we did a live during one of our conversations at some point. That was a really, really cool experience. And we got to know each other a little bit there.
Again, that was me opening up to a new perspective, because I live on the East Coast, and I can tell you that I would never spend 12 hours with two men that I've never met previously. I would never do that. I live in New York. You don't do that in New York. But here I go to Tallinn, and I go, the other side of the Northern Europe, and I meet these two men who a good friend introduced us, and there was synergy there. There was synchronicity, and we were on the same page. And I knew that I was surrounded by like-minded people. And so I didn't even realize that it was 12 hours later, but I feel like these two guys are my brothers. These are my brothers. They'll always be my brothers. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there have been times where I've made comments to my husband about walking through an alley or not doing certain things, and my husband looks at me like I don't get it. And so I think there's certain things that I've found as a woman that we experience that we are aware of that the other gender doesn't necessarily, they don't think about. So
Right.
so I so appreciate you bringing that up, that that's not typical for you.
It's not typical.
Yeah. Awesome.
Sherry, please share a win.
All right, it's my turn. Honestly, my win is similar to yours, in that this weekend here in the U.S. was a holiday, so I had like a 3.5 day weekend with my kids because they got out of school half a day early and didn't have school on Friday, and so we were planning on camping. I just couldn't pull together all the kind of the required planning for that with the big grocery shopping and all that. So I was like, okay, well, how can we just have fun with the kids at home? And so we had a blast. We did some golfing stuff on Friday, at like Top Golf, which is one of those where you like hit it up. We're on the second story. It's all open and it's gamified, and you've got the screen and you get points, and that was just a blast. And then like Saturday, I went for like a 2.5 hour bike ride with my kids, and then Sunday, we went swimming, and then Monday we went swimming again. It was just really good. It was more dedicated time to just kind of hanging out with my kids. And I would say the sweetest part of the whole thing was on our bike ride. We went bike riding to the downtown of our city. We probably went about 5 or 6 miles. 3 of my kids were like, "I'm done. I'm tapped out." So my husband met us, and he carted them back with the bikes. And then, but my youngest, the one that is the least physically strong, she's like, "I want to ride back." And so I rode back with her, and we walked half the way with our bikes, but we had really good conversation. And I was able to just be so proud of her and let her know how proud I was of her, that she really pushed herself and did the hard thing. So that, I would say, out of all of that, like that mother moment was my favorite.
That is so cool. I love that experience. I saw the post that you had, and your name was on top. High achiever, super achiever, overachiever, whatever you want to call it.
At Top Golf, yes. However, that was the first game. I was not as successful in beating everybody else on all the rest of the games, but it was super fun.
That sounds like a cool experience. It's funny. This is the probably one of the few weekends where I've been in the doing mode because we're in the middle of a move, and on top of that, my weeks are like I would say the past month has been the busiest. I would probably say I've been in business, just because I'm handling so many projects, and even though I'm working still, I'm pushing myself to work within the same time frame that I normally do, but the mental drain is like 3 times more. So I
Yeah.
feel it by the end of the day. I feel it on the weekends, which is interesting. I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, maybe this will be my normal. She just looked at me gave me a bad look. Like, I mean, I'll get used to it, so it won't drain me that much. He's like, okay, as long as you don't show up like this. So I think my win, interestingly, is that I think I've trained myself to be more in the being state much more. So doing to me is more of like, it's coming from the being side of things. Like this, I'm very excited. I'm in the zone. I'm like, I don't force myself to do anything. It's just I'm so excited to move a lot of these projects forward, because they're all connected to my vision, that it feels good, even though there's challenges in there. There are things that I don't know most of it how to do, and I'm just doing it and to figure it out. But it's moving forward somehow, somewhere. It's moving forward, and I literally booked my tickets for going to Denver, which is going to be my event, one of our events. Sherry's going to be there, so I'll see Sherry after a while for in person too.
Nice.
And I'll get to see JP too. But I actually booked 3 days ahead to go see what is it, Rocky Mountain National Park.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be staying there for a couple of nights just to have some time before the whole thing erupts. because Zoraida knows, and probably Sherry knows too, I'll be around people constantly.
Yeah, and talking.
And talking a little bit too much. Yeah, so those would be my wins. Is just going towards the things that I'm really excited about. That matters.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I can just in this conversation, we haven't even jumped into the juicy stuff yet, but I can already feel there's like this energy in what everybody's sharing. So I'm so excited to continue this conversation. Before we jump into, like I said, the juicy stuff, we need to, and we love to recognize our sponsor for this podcast, which is the Coaching Mastery community. So it's a virtual community that I'm a part of, that Faisal's a part of, that a bunch of other coaches are a part of, that really works to support the growth of coaching. Both coaching mastery, like how do you do the craft, the art, the skill, but also how do you build your business, the business side of it, so that it can actually support and be financially viable. Because a lot of times we have these big desires, big goals, big ideas, and we want to change the world. But we got to have income, we have to have systems, we have to have like the whole process to support that. Otherwise, we're never going to realize what that impact really could be. So it's helping bring both of those pieces together with synergy. Faisal, what would you add to that?
So you reminded me of how this whole thing started, and the way it started, which connects back to Zoraida and I walking around Tallinn. Exactly how it started, except we were walking around Phoenix, Arizona, with a bunch of coaches. We were trying to figure out how, like, because coaches want to work together and do this, and the whole community is focused on how do we support each other to move forward. So we're constantly sharing perspective, insights, helping each other, like real world examples of how coaching works, what actually works based on the theory that we're taught, and what doesn't work. Yeah. And we get to learn from all these coaches in terms of their skill sets and go apply them and bring it back. Hey, this part worked and this part didn't. Like, how did you do that? And we gain a lot of perspective in there. And then over time, as we've realized that the business part is just as important, we have added that portion too, is that, okay, what are we doing on the business side of things? So as an example, I did a session the other day where we talked about the like how can you create a more sustainable model for coaching, and one of the things I've done is an evergreen coaching model, and literally all I did was share like what I've done, the back end of things and how it works, and within just a couple of days 2-3 of the coaches created that same model for themselves and they started sharing. And that's incredibly powerful to me because I never saw that when I was at the initial stages of my coaching journey. I just needed somebody to share and talk about those things. And I know even Zoraida, when we had those conversations, some of those things got revealed to you
yes.
When Peter and I and you were saying. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
So it was at such a great time of my life because I just recently created a nutrition and cancer coaching business after getting a cancer diagnosis 13 years ago. And, you don't know what you don't know. So for me to, spend the time with two people who have walked the shoes that I'm walking now, it was valuable information. So yeah, really, I got a lot of good information from there. And I actually took some of it back and I've been implementing it, right, Faisal?
Yeah, and we've been back and forth. I've been giving her feedback for it too. And it was funny because I just shared something and then Peter's like, oh, that could go viral. Like say it again, you record this. And then Zoraida's like writing that down. And then that finally became a template for her to kind of how she can start to reach out to people in her coaching business. And then we've been kind of going back and forth. I've been giving her feedback and I've been keeping her accountable as well on.
Yes. I'm having technical difficulties. So I haven't produced the actual video, but it'll be coming out in the next few days.
Awesome. Well, those that are listening, this is Zoraida Morales. Did I get your name right?
You did. Thank you.
All right, so you will definitely want to Google her after you get done listening to this, but please don't do it in your car. Wait, Zoraida Morales. Zoraida, can you share with us what got you into coaching in the beginning? What did that look like?
Wow.
Big question.
So I never thought that healing myself mentally, physically, spiritually would bring me to be a nutrition and cancer coach, but that's exactly what happened. So in 2018, while working as a finance manager at Morgan Stanley, I was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia. And I had a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, a husband, a home, a car. I mean, I thought I had the most idyllic life, and my life came crashing down. And it was interesting because I had just started college again, and I was determined to at least finish that year. So while fighting for my life, I decided I'm going to continue going to school. But here are the things that I asked myself when I got that diagnosis. Do I want to live? Do I want to die? What am I hungry for? What do I need that I don't have? And how do I get it? And those questions just stick with me every time I do something that's out of my comfort zone, because I just had this, and I can't explain it, but I just had this feeling that I was meant to do something with it, but I didn't know what, right? I come from the finance world. I've been 25 years in finance. I really wasn't open to anything else, but then I was kind of forced to. And so with those questions in mind, I kept Googling every day. Like I had a reminder on my calendar, and it said, how can I help the world? What does the world need? And every day I would just Google it, and I would just look at the results and see if anything would stick. And then when I was finally in remission and I was determined to go back to work, I said, I need to do something different. So I started working for Rutgers University as a department administrator in the Latino department. And that fed my soul, right? Here I am moving from corporate. It fed my soul. There were a lot of challenges because, in the corporate world, there's structures, there's systems. And in the college, university, higher education world, especially a university that is also the state of New Jersey University, made it kind of really took me out of my comfort zone a bit. And then one day, my sister calls and she says, a friend of mine needs help. Her daughter is 28 years old and just got diagnosed with breast 4-stage cancer, incurable. Would you speak with her? And I said, of course I will. And I spoke to this mom, and she was devastated. She didn't know how to help her daughter. Her daughter didn't know what she needed, because you don't know, right? So I let her ask me any question that she wanted. And then at the end, I told her the 5 things she should do, or she would want to consider. And when she thanked me for the hour conversation, I could tell you my heart just went with such love that I felt that I haven't felt in such a long time. And then my fingers started to tingle. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm excited. When my fingers tingle, that means I'm excited. And right there, Sherry, I knew I'm going to be a cancer coach. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what it looked like, but I knew what it felt like because I had that moment. And that was the beginning of me Googling schools. I said, I'm going to invest in myself. I started looking at schools, and then I realized there's not a lot of schools that teach cancer coaching, because now I have a niche, right? But I found 2, narrowed it down to 1. And I find out that, hey, there's a scholarship that I could apply for. And so it's an $11,000 scholarship. And I said, well, I'm going to apply. I spent a whole month creating a video, directing it, producing it, figuring out what I was going to wear, what I was going to say, getting my references. And lo and behold, I'm awarded the full scholarship. I joined Mind Valley the same month. And then I joined the Fem League all in the same month. Now, these are things and places that I manifested. And it all happened March of 2021. So it was one hell of a month. And I've been on cloud 9 ever since. And I've been out of my comfort zone ever since.
I think your story about listening to what was going on inside of you is such a powerful example, a powerful moment. So I'd like to go back to that moment in time a little bit. What was that like? You had this powerful internal emotional experience. Did all of the logic, what does that look like? How would I even do that? What are you thinking? Did that matter? Did you listen to any of that? Was it present? Or how did that happen?
Well, it's present, right? Because what I was feeling was from my heart. And I hadn't felt my heart in a really long time because I was listening to my mind and my ego all this time. And so, yes, the mind was like, are you crazy? You're going to leave your finance career. You're not going to go back. What about the house? What about your kids' education? It was coming up with all these reasons why I shouldn't do the next phase of my career. And my ego was saying the same thing. What does that mean? You're a cancer coach. I like the finance manager title. You know what I mean? So I had, like every one of us, I had these conversations going on in my head. But I remember getting that cancer diagnosis and thinking, I want to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I knew that meant that I was on the right path by being a cancer coach, because now I am going to help others. Now, I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. I come from a family where I was brought up to take care of others. Self-love was not a thing we talked about. What was good for the family collectively was good for everyone. And I had my role to play. And I played it really well, so much to the point that, at some point in my life, I was people pleasing and not honoring my own boundaries and not sometimes even realizing what my boundaries were. But I knew that I was in the right place when my heart just went, that was like it was like having a glass of wine, being with your lover. I mean, that's how it felt for me, because I hadn't felt that in such a long time. I mean, it was 13 years of taking chemotherapy. It was 13 years. It was really, there weren't that many moments where I felt that way, but I felt that, and I know what I felt. So I didn't know what it looked like, what it sounded like, but I knew what it felt like. And I said, I am going with my heart, and I am making my heart the leader, and the ego and the mind have to follow and support. And then I couldn't believe that I was thinking this way. I was like, oh shit, it was mind blowing. And I was like, that's growth. I'm evolving. Now, my friends and my family were like, are you sure? Are you okay? Are you mixing medication? Like, I don't get this. People were really telling me, I understand you want to take care of the world, but no, who's going to take care of you? And I said, I feel protected. I feel loved. Like, for the first time, I actually felt that I felt love from a higher level. Does that make sense? Like, God loved me, and he was now helping me find my purpose, and I was going to help him heal the world. And I was like, oh my God, this is mind-boggling. But I got to tell you, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I became a better parent. I became a better person. I became a better daughter, friend. It was just this journey that I've on was meant to be. I now realize I was meant to experience all those experiences to get to where I'm at so that I can help others, so that others can see from my journey that A, you can change your life. B, you can change your mindset, which is the most really difficult thing to do. But most importantly, I get to be the best version of myself, living the life that I was born to live, not living the life that I was born in.
Yeah.
And that's why Zoraida is here on the podcast.
Yes.
Oh, so powerful. So powerful. I literally got teary-eyed as I was listening to you.
What? It's not just me like every other time.
One of the most powerful things or experiences that I've seen in other people and that I had to get to at a certain point in my journey was the gratitude of the struggle. Like, God, thank you for bringing me through all of this mess because I am clear on how I can use that to serve others. And I love that part of your story.
And you got it. You know, Sherry, it was gratitude. I live in gratitude. I'm not saying that my life is perfect. It's beyond perfect, but I live in gratitude. And when I feel uneasy and when I feel doubtful, I go back to gratitude. And when I do that, I just feel that the universe opens up to me. And next thing you know, something comes in. So yes, you got it. It's about gratitude.
I love this because, and there's a phrase I keep hearing over and over. I don't know if this became like a marketing thing, but it's very powerful that like personifies what Zoraida is talking about, is that, and even Dr. Sherry, is that your mess is your message. And a lot of times we run away from the mess. We don't want to deal with the mess. And now you can replace cancer with all sorts of things, from depression to all of that, to struggles and addiction, to family challenges, to divorce, to career breakdown. Like all these moments that we have that are defining moments for us to make decisions. Now, none of us know objectively what they mean, but in our subjective experience, like I have heard this so many times, including just in my own experience, that I was meant to go through this. I was meant to do this. I was meant to that. It's like beyond a shadow of doubt, you feel it, because when you look back in your experience now, when the pieces are coming together, like, oh, I didn't know why the hell I was going through that then, but now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I get why I'm going through that. And one of the things that I felt really connected to Zoraida's experience, not just because she's a coach, but because as she was talking about it, and I still remember when we were sitting in that restaurant in the middle of the town square, it just hit me because the year before that, one of our family members, she had cancer, and we actually had to visit her in UK, and she actually passed away. A very young woman, in her like early 40s, very intelligent, very talented. And actually, my wife, Sarah, she's been dealing with that because her kids were here just recently in the summer, and like every day she was crying basically with them. And what made it worse is that she looks exactly like her aunt. And her kids are like, I can't even look at you. And I remember going there to England. We stayed there for 2 weeks with her. We had some amazing conversations. That actually transformed so much of our perspective. It became very defining for us because we realized, holy shoot, why are we doing any of the things that we're doing? And even though we had grown a lot, we realized just talking to her that how much those precious moments that we have of gratitude, of connecting with our life matters. Because when you get to that point where there is no turning back, you're looking at it, you're like, none of this stuff that I give a shit about matters.
Yeah.
None of this thing about what other people thought, what society thinks of me, or what my career path is, or somebody telling me what medication you're on matters.
Yeah.
And because ultimately in that moment, you're making other decisions. And what we realized was that like even like the friends and family of the cancer survivor, we had no idea how to support her. Like all we could do was be there. And my wife kept asking me, like, what can we do? What can we shift? And I remember I talked to another coach who was part of our community at the time. She had gone through cancer, and a couple of them I had conversations just to go back. And at some point, I remember it hit me when I talked to her. I realized she doesn't want to survive. She had already made her decision. The only reason she kept saying, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing it for other people. Even then, she was living for other people, which really hit me because she was struggling. And now we're actually at a research scientific level, we're understanding that there are links. And you mentioned that you were the one who was the one taking care of everybody else. And usually people who are taking care of everybody else, guess what? They don't notice themselves in the process. Yes. They always, oh, I'll deal with this thing later. I'll deal with this upset. I'll deal with this breakdown later. I'll put a pause on that. And we're learning, for example, Dr. Gabor Mate in his book, When the Body Says No, talks about this is from looking at the newer fields of psychoneuroimmunology, that there is a huge link between emotions and psychological burdens that we hold on to and we don't deal over time. And they're potentially going to show up somehow and manifest in your body as something that we cannot explain. One of them, he gives an example of cancer or rheumatoid arthritis, or many of the diseases that we have no idea how to deal with. Or we're starting to beginning to understand what they are. And it goes back to is that it's not just a physical problem. It's the problems that we don't see, which are usually emotional in nature, psychological in nature. So when I was listening to Zoraida's story, it's like one of it is that she's bringing awareness to the fact that, hey, we need to deal with our shit. And second is that she's going to be like, I was listening as the family and friend of cancer survivors, like I needed support. I didn't know how to help her. None of us do. And like if I knew Zoraida existed at the time, guess what I would do? I would connect her directly with her. I would even share her stuff with her, because we were like literally we were buying books and we were finding videos. Watch this, do this. We literally bought like 7 books in her. So it's important, I think. This area where there needs to be support, but also now it's coming from a field of coaching where you're helping them kind of make sense of what's happening. And it's not even about whether the person survives or not. Does that person have support? Does that person understand what his or her options are? And most people don't, because they're under the pressure. And when you watch people, they're even in that stage, a lot of people are trying to please others.
Yes.
Because they don't realize that they still haven't seen themselves. Like you said, they haven't seen the gift that they are.
Wow. You know, that's so true, because fighting cancer is a mindset shift. It really is. And so we come to, you know, when we get these diagnoses, we come in with our limited beliefs. We come in with our childhood trauma. And these are the things that get us stuck. These are the times where we say, no, we can't do that. No, I don't want to do that. I haven't thought of that. I don't want to think of that. I'm too old. Who cares? I'm going to die anyway. I mean, I've heard all kinds of stories. I mean, we all have. 1 in 3 people get this diagnosis. So we all know someone who's had cancer. And cancer, doesn't discriminate culture, age, race, or anything, because it's just across the whole spectrum. So for me, I look at cancer as a mindset shift. It's a shift. Again, I had to ask myself that question. I know it sounds really weird to ask, but I said to myself, I got this diagnosis on a Friday from a doctor I never met, because who has an oncologist that they see once a year? No one. So I get this diagnosis from a doctor that I've never met on a Friday, and she tells me, you have chronic myeloid leukemia. And I was like, what? And I really thought that she was kidding, because I'm going back to work. Like, this is just a routine annual physical, and my blood work looked kind of wonky. So my doctor kept sending me to different doctors, which was a whole we can talk about that another time, but just getting that diagnosis is difficult because you cannot visit an oncologist without the diagnosis, but you cannot get the diagnosis without the oncologist. So it's like chicken or egg, which one comes first? And I had to ask myself the question, do I want to live? Do I want to die? And because I had a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, I wanted to live. I wanted to live more than anything. Sherry, you and Fasa, you want to see your kids grow up. You want to see them get married, graduate from college, all those things in one moment just came to me. But then it was like, well, how do I want to live? And what am I hungry for? And the hunger was like really huge because I thought, and I loved investment banking, but I loved it because of what it did for me externally. See, it took me out of poverty. I was born in poverty, it took me out of poverty. It gave me all the things that I needed at that time. But when I got this diagnosis, I really needed my soul to be healed. I needed inner work. I needed to change my core. I needed to change that shift in my head that said, we're going to shift the core because we're going to get rid of limited beliefs because it's the only way I'm going to travel through this road that scares the hell out of me. And so how do I do that? And for me, it was just putting the heart first and then finding those modalities and those teachers that would bring it all together because I had no idea what it meant at all. And I had no idea that I would still be on this journey and now realize that I'm always going to be on this journey. That we're all on this journey. It's not just someone who has cancer. It's called evolution. It's called progress. It's called growth. It's called emotional intelligence. It's all those things that happen mostly because I got that diagnosis. And for that diagnosis, for everything that I am experiencing now, I can tell you that cancer diagnosis was a gift. It was a gift. And I know someone who's going through it now is probably saying, what the heck is she talking about? I didn't think of it as a gift when I first received it. But 13 years later, I can tell you it's been the biggest gift that I have because it's helped me get rid of limited beliefs. And I would still have some. There's still some that I still work on. And there's still some that, come and roar its ugly head. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to do a meditation on money triggers. You see, now I have the tools in my toolbox to deal with those things. But I had to go deep. I had to go into my limited beliefs. And I did that with Mind Valley and Marissa Peer. And then I had to work through, my divorce, my marriage, my childhood trauma. It's been an incredible ride. Definitely not for people who would prefer to medicate and find external things to make them happy. I am now looking for things that internally make me happy. And this is what keeps me going. And so here I am, brought up to take care of others. Now I get to do it in my terms, on my terms.
I love
So,
that.
yeah.
And that's I feel like when you watch coaches, many of them have gone through that. And one of the things that I want to highlight here is that I think one of the most powerful thing that happens is owning our own story, which means owning the struggles and really being grateful a lot of times for those struggles. And then that doesn't mean that you deny that it's painful. Like every time I just like you, as I share my story, any aspect, I can feel the pain, like even right now, like when I think about it, when I see it. But that doesn't necessarily make the experience a negative experience. That just means that it was an important experience. And as we own that, I think a magical thing happens. And our client and the people that we see around us, we're seeking that gift. We're trying to find that. We're trying to see, well, where are they in these jumble of words that they're talking about, the surface things that they're sharing. Where are they? and they're kind of hidden quite a few layers behind that. And I think that's what makes coaches powerful, because all it might take is one or two questions that might shift somebody's trajectory of life.
So as you're working with folks that have been diagnosed with cancer, and maybe their family, I'm not sure exactly what, your full scope looks like, what is your intention around helping them gain clarity and change on? How do you want to see them different on the other side? What is your vision around that?
So, the last 2-3 years that we've been in COVID it's been really difficult and challenging, but it's also been beautiful for me. I realized that healing others emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually is where the authenticity of happiness comes. So I want to live in peace, love, and joy every day, every moment of every day, right? It's a very general statement. And so one of the things that I started to do is I started to eat better. So I eat 90% clean, which means I eat organic food, farm wild raised fish, no additives, no processed food, no fried food, no additives, pasture raised eggs. I do that. For me, that's a form of self-love. And it also really helped my gut, because taking chemotherapy for 13 years and 5 miscarriages really ruined my digestive system. So that was one of the ways that I started to heal myself. And then another way was, working with therapists, I didn't have a coach, but I did have different therapists. I've had like 5 or 6 therapists throughout my life, where I focused on certain things that were in my core, things that I wanted to change about myself. Maybe other people didn't notice it, but these were things that I noticed that I wanted to, again, think that I wanted to be in peace, love, and joy. And I wanted to be the best version that I can be. So I worked on, those things that help me be more patient. All those things that we may not like about ourselves, right? Why am I, quick to take feedback in a negative way instead of looking at it in a more positive way? That was one of the things that I wanted to work on. Physically, I went back to exercising every day, because I used to be very athletic. And so I started, my body was just, it was weak from all the chemotherapy and from all I've been through. So not only did I start doing yoga, but then I started working on with Pilates and all the other things that will make my body strong. But I think the most important thing for me was I got back in touch with my spirituality, right? I grew up with no religion. We're Catholics by name, right? But I really grew up with no religion. And when I got my cancer diagnosis, I was really mad at God. I mean, I broke up with him. I was like, how dare you, motherfucker? Ooh, can I say that on? But
You said it.
Oh, I did say it.
You can't take it back. It's live.
I was really angry at God. I was like, Jesus, I was born in poverty. It took us 10, 15 years to get out of poverty, right? My mother went to college in the 70s with 4 kids under 6 years old, working and going to college at night just to get us out of poverty. So I always felt like, why does life always have to be a struggle? So when I got my cancer diagnosis, I was like, that's it. I'm done with you, God, right? But years later, I realized that was missing in my life. I needed to believe in something higher than myself, because no one else believed in me. Remember, I had people telling me, are you crazy? You're leaving this lucrative job, this career, everything that you've known to do what? What's a coach? What does a coach do? And what does a coach look like? And so I really felt like I had no one, and I had to learn to be my best friend. But I had a feeling that that something was missing, and it was that. Now, I'm not very religious, I'm more spiritual, but God and I made up, God and Mother Goddess. I talked to them, I told them how I felt, and I told them that I would seek them more and that I loved them. And with that and my forgiveness, I think it was my biggest change, because I had to learn to forgive. I had to forgive not only everyone who I felt F me, but I had to forgive myself for putting myself in situations I shouldn't have been in, for not forgiving my power away, for not understanding what my boundaries were, for listening to other people telling me, no, she's a nice person, you just got it wrong, and for not listening to my own gut. And once I did that, I knew I was on the right track. I knew that I'm going to be a coach. I'm never going to retire. This is what I'm going to do. I am going to be a coach while I travel around the world. And that's what I said to God. And that became my mission. That is my life mission. I am going to heal. I'm going to educate and empower other cancer survivors using the holistic tools so they can live a glorious life by design and not default. And that, I feel, is why I'm here.
Yeah, that's so powerful. What does that look like? And as you know, every coach seems like their journey, their business evolves, which I think is just part of life. You used that term earlier. But right now, I'm curious, what has it looked like? Where is it at? And where do you envision it going?
Oh, thank you for your question, because when I said those words, I had no idea what they meant, Sherry. I was just saying them. I think we've all been there, right? We say words that they just come to us, but then I realized it means something. So, but what does it look like? So I can tell you that this year, I met Faisal because I took a leap of faith. In January of 2021, I said, I'm going to Mind Valley U. I am going to spend a whole month in Estonia, and I am going to do energy work, and I'm going to do healing work, and I am just going to work on myself internally and externally. I had no idea, the curriculum wasn't even out yet, right? But I just felt compelled to go. Again, I was listening to my gut, to my instincts, which I had never done before. So I book an Airbnb, and I pay for this month's work of workshops. I'm going to Europe by myself. I mean, I am doing things that I've never would have thought that I was going to do. So
hanging out with two guys you've never met before for an entire day.
Yes.
That was part of her healing, to meet a couple of strange, scary looking guys.
Yeah.
With black shirts on.
They were talking my language because we were like-minded.
Yeah.
And so here I am, I'm journaling, I'm learning, I'm meeting like-minded people. And I'm like, this is what it looks like. Traveling around the world while healing others and learning myself, because I learned so much from being on that trip, so much. And so I'm leaving for Virginia Beach in October for 2 weeks. I'm going to work on the beach, right on the beach. I love the beach. I'm a beach person. I've actually used to do my grocery list on the beach with my 2 little kids when they were little, because we live near the Jersey Shore. I just feel like it opens my mind. Like, you know how nature does that? That's the time where I feel so open to everything. So I'm going for 2 weeks by myself to work and to see friends, because I have friends there. But that's what it looks like. Next year, I'm doing the same. I'm going back to Estonia for 2 weeks. But this time I'm going to Portugal for 4 weeks, because I'm thinking of moving there. Because when I go to Portugal, I feel this sense of I belong. And don't we all want to be somewhere where we belong? Mm-hmm. So, I have 1 kid, a junior in college. 1 is a senior in high school. It's time for me to be where I belong. So I am traveling around the world to determine where I belong. And if I belong in 3, 4 different countries, I think that's what it looks like then.
That's so incredible. I mean, that narrative that you're talking about, like especially when I was in Estonia, every person I talked to, every other person, like, where are you from? Oh, I'm from New York, but I'm living in Portugal for this long. Where are you from? I'm from South Africa. I've been living in Germany for this long. Where are you
Yeah,
from? I'm from Europe. I've been living in, like, what the hell? Nobody's living where they were born.
nobody.
And then they all have these really cool stories around. It wasn't that like they just went there. It was more of a transformational story, and they got this sense of belonging. I mean, we know one of our coaches who moved to south of Spain from Miami, and she is like, when I went there, I felt like I was home, and she felt really, and she was on the podcast too. And it's interesting. I wonder what it is, and it kind of is a theme that that I've noticed with people who kind of open up. As soon as they open up internally, they open up to experience externally as well. And with our clients is very interesting, because one of the things that I really push my clients in is certain things that they kind of take for granted. For example, I had a client the other day, and especially when it comes to relationships, she's been in a relationship that has been like, she's either neither in nor out, and she's not making the decision around it, and it's been like, what, 20 something years, which when I hear that, is that you're not together, you're just living in the same place. You don't have a common vision, you don't have a common path. Maybe there are some common values that hold you together, but it's just you're living together, you're roommates. And then as I'm pushing her not to leave, but pushing her to, what do you need to deal with to either build a true connection or make another decision forward? Because that state of neither not living and nor that state doesn't serve you or the other person or the kids around you.
Yeah.
And it is probably one of the hardest things, especially when it comes to relationships, for people to kind of make those decisions, because it's painful, right? And one of the first things that happens when people kind of wake up to themselves, they make a lot of decisions. And for me, it was the decision, like, I need to figure out my marriage. I don't give a shit if there's conflict. I don't care if there's, literally, I was like, I don't care about anything. We need to figure this out now. So we either are in this all in or we're not in this. And that was scary for me. But it was this path of that, okay, we need to figure this shit out, because life is short. It is a gift. You're a gift. I'm a gift, but we need to figure out how we fit in here and how we're supporting our kids, how we're supporting our community. Because if we're not supporting and we're just kind of carrying forward whatever is given to us, then we're just moving forward the same cycles of trauma, same cycles of problems, same cycles of shit that shows up in the bigger world. And you're really pointing to that hey, we need to really deal with these things first in ourselves, and then we support others as challenge them to really work through this stuff.
See, and what I hear you say is that, you're looking at yourself and you're saying, how can I self-love even more? Because I'm worthy of a marriage that's in a really good place. I'm worthy of being a parent where I can be this great role model for my children when it comes to marriage. So what I hear from you is you're actually putting yourself first. You're leading with your heart. You're putting yourself first. As you're doing that, you're putting your marriage first. You're putting your family first. You're putting community first. So thank you for your story. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I'm in a lot of agreement with that. And I hear different worldview and different frameworks from different people on how they evaluate, what is a priority. And I think it's interesting because even though some of us have very different worldviews, different beliefs around higher power and that sort of thing, there's still ultimately is this commonality that we've got to take care of ourselves, whether ourselves is a priority or whether it's our ability to impact others is a priority. Because if we don't have ourselves in a good place, we can't really help others. It's that cheesy example when you're flying the airplane, like you got to put your own mask on before you can help your kid. We've got to be in our best, whatever that looks like, for us to be able to give our best and for us to have the biggest impact. And the other analogy that came to mind as I heard both of you talking is you said, Zoraida, that you want to find a place where you belong. And I think so. I've lived 15 years as a licensed psychologist in the mental health field, and worked a lot in addictions, especially when I was in the Air Force psychologist. And one of the things was so critical to the recovery of an addict is getting them out of the environment that supports their addictive lifestyle and habits. And so when I hear about all these people like making these life changes to move, that's kind of what it was. I'm like, okay, they're making decisions based on what they need to be able to be their best, to contribute their most. And it's their environment, whether it's like when I think about moving and jumping ship to a different country, it's because like I want better eating habits. Like I want that lifestyle of clean eating, which is not readily available in the US. I mean, you could do it, but
It's
and
really difficult
I
to
have,
do this.
yeah, I have these glorious visions of walking to the market 2 blocks away to buy my fresh fruits and vegetables for the day, and being able to share that experience with my kids and being able to help them be as healthy. And so I just think it's so cool that as the world becomes smaller and more easily accessible through technology, through travel, we have the opportunity to find that environment that supports the kind of development and the kind of lifestyle and self beliefs that we're looking for, that are we deem as healthy, not as keeping us stuck in that same rut or the same unhealthy perspectives that we grew up with, or that contributed to our current broken, brokenness in the moment.
Yeah. I love that. And you kind of, I mean, you were talking about the worldview. So I love how Dr. Marshall Rosenberg frames this, and his model for nonviolent communication is that we can, like, when you look at human beings coming from different parts of the world, their strategies will vary for how they deal with things. But at the basic, most foundational level, we're talking about human emotions, human needs. And when we recognize that in ourselves and we recognize that in others, we can find all sorts of incredible creative ways of dealing with it. But even though, and I love that you pointed to that, Dr. Sherry, because even though like the whole process of healing, one of the first things I actually learned that from Dr. Bruce Lipton when he was talking about a single cell. He's like, if you put a cell in a petri dish that's alive, and part of that petri dish has a toxic environment, it will naturally move away from there. It has mechanisms to move away from toxicity towards a better environment. And you will see that if it doesn't have a choice, it starts to get sick, starts to break down. But if you take the same cell, put it in another petri dish that's a good environment, it's a healthy environment, it will thrive, it will grow. And the challenge with us is that we have a mind that's been taught to not go towards our well-being, move away from our well-being. And now we're starting in the whole process of, as Zoraida is talking about, self-love, is understanding those basic foundational human needs. And maybe that need might be the need to be accepted, the need to be understood, the need to belong, the need to grow, the need to connect, the need to do the things that we find purposeful and exciting. And I think as we find more and more people who kind of are on that healing journey, and especially those who are actually going out there and contributing, I think that is creating a huge shift. And you're also being the role model in your community, in your company, in your organization, and your family. Is like, oh, just watch, because when people watch this, especially watch your journey, they start to. I'll share this quick story. So we were at a gathering a few weeks back. Couple of months back, and it was we were sitting there, and we somehow the conversation went towards, it was a really cool conversation. We talked about a few things around language and different cultures and living in different parts of the world. At some point, like I started sharing some of the stuff that I went through, and I think it was my brother-in-law, he shared about not being able to sleep at night. And I was like, might be some things you need to deal with there.
Yeah.
I didn't say what, but there might be some things that you might need to get support for. And then somebody asked her, like, well, how did you deal with those things that you were talking about? And I was like, I thought about it. Oh, the way I dealt with them was like dealing with them directly. And what that looked like, and I literally had to say it, is like what that looked like was there was a time when I was laid off for about 4 months, and my wife would be at work. Every time she would come home, what did you do? About 3 hours of crying, 3 hours of dealing with some of the things that I worked through, 2 hours of going through this thing that helped me go through a forgiveness process, or something else that would, and just that work is so incredibly important.
So necessary.
Because if once you do the work, you will notice when people talk, when people share, you will notice that there's something missing there. And you can directly ask, what are you going to do about that? Yeah. What is the direction that you're going? And as that thing is dealt with, what happens is the need is met. And when the need is met, then we naturally are giving. I think human beings in our natural state, when we're in a safe environment, what do? Our cup is full, we just give. We share, we connect. We don't hoard. But if it's not full, if we're scared, if we're disconnected, if we don't feel like we belong, what do? We're like, I don't trust these people, no matter how close they are. I'm going to do my own little thing, and I'll see you guys later. I'll pretend like I am connected to you. I'll be part of the same family. I'll be part of the same religion, but I'm not really.
With no authenticity. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and it would have been so easy for me to have a vodka martini, to expect others to entertain me and help me feel better. But I got so much from actually sitting in my own shit, from processing, just like you're saying, you spent 3 hours crying. Well, I did the same thing. I mean, it was great being in COVID without my children here, because I got to play music and dance like a banshee. I got to cry and yell and just sit in it and feel it and process it, and then make a decision of how I wanted to show up for myself. And it would have been so easy to just stayed watching Netflix and having that martini, but I just knew that I was going to come through the other side in such such a more glorious space, that as I kept going through these things, I kept feeling more confident in myself, and I kept feeling more love for myself. And then I realized I need to give from an overflowing cup, not an empty cup, not a full cup, an overflowing cup. So then when I give, I'm giving with all my heart, but I've already given to the most important person, me. And this is how I start my mornings. I mean, I continuously change my daily activities as I keep getting these epiphanies, these dimensional downloads, because I'm just finding more ways of just self-loving. And, society poo-poos on that word. I'm going to find another word, because it doesn't do enough. It doesn't really show enough, but the self-love, when we all put ourselves first internally to heal ourselves, to be our best selves, to set those boundaries with ourselves, everything just falls into place.
Yeah.
And we're just happier.
And what we're saying is not something new. We're calling it self-love now, but some of the most amazing teachers in the world have said that if you really want to change the world, go change yourself.
Yeah.
Go deal with your stuff, because whatever you bring with yourself, you're going to bring out in the world. You might have a great idea or a vision about changing this part of the world, or bringing this or bringing that, but keep in mind that you carry yourself in those situations.
Yes.
And so as coaches, you're carrying yourself in those sessions. You're going to project a lot of who you are in there, whether you like it or not. That's normal. So what are you projecting? Are you projecting a more conscious version of yourself, a more intentional version of yourself? Or are you projecting a more reactive and this version of you that just sees the world and, oh, this is for me, versus, hey, I'm open and I'm curious and I'm learning and I want to support you towards that healing journey. And I mean, almost everything we're talking about lands towards that. We got to do the work. And doesn't mean you need to be perfect. Doesn't mean you have to have, you just need to be on that journey. Yeah. You just need to be on that journey of growth with your clients. And what I find incredibly powerful about the coaching path is that at some point, the coaching helps you grow, not just because you're being coached, but you're coaching others. My clients inspire me more than anybody else. And when you watch them do certain things and you're challenging them, you can't help but do the same thing or even more. Like, if I'm going to challenge them there, I better challenge myself 3 times more to grow in this area.
And I think it's very similar to as a life as a parent. I mean, even just reflecting back on my experience with my daughter, like, I wasn't, I mean, I think as a parent, my job is also coaching my kids. And yes. when I learned that and that shift happened, I was like, oh, now I can stop telling them what to do as much and start asking really good questions. So I've become a better parent. But even on that bike ride, like, I was so proud of my daughter, and I didn't say or do anything to prompt her to want to push herself. But boy, when she said, Mom, I want to ride back, even though her butt hurt because, we're riding bike, like, and, she said her shoulder hurt, her wrist was hurting. That didn't matter. And so when I heard her say that, I'm like, dang, how am I going to step it up? Like, I can't let her, like, be the one to, show the courage and the fortitude. It's like, okay, I got to match that. So I love that. We get that from clients, from friends, from spouses, but the more people that we surround ourselves with that can show those character qualities, high performance habits, all of, whatever label we want to put on it, that are showing those, it's reciprocal, like, makes us better. And then when we're better, it makes the other people better. And it's just a never ending positive loop.
It is. It is. I find that I'm a better parent. Even my children have, they've even commented on the shifts they've made because they've seen the example that I've set. And these are not, I didn't intentionally set them out, but, as parents, they see what we do, not what we say. And when we think they're not listening, when we think they're not paying attention, they are. Mm-hmm. And, I have 2 young men who I'm actually teaching them now about self-love, about your heart. Because I wasn't brought up thinking about my heart. We were in fight and flight mode. So we always start with the mind and the ego. And the heart had no place, because the heart will actually cry because we were hungry. We were living in poverty. We didn't have all those needs met that Maslow's hierarchy of needs talks about. We were stuck on that first level. And so in my household, they didn't want you to think with the heart, because the heart would cry. And the heart had, my mother wanted us to be so prideful. We couldn't tell anyone that we were poor. We couldn't tell anyone that we didn't eat. So I'm teaching my children to self-love so that they can be the best version of themselves, but then they can go out and spread that love, right? With their future wives and girlfriends and children. And I think that, I may sound like a Pollyanna, but if everyone would just feel with their heart a little more, this world would be such a better place.
Yeah. And I just want to this is also a demonstration of it, because all 3 of us come from very different backgrounds. And even in our language, I hear we believe different things. Our language is different. Our strategies are different. But what I find myself doing a lot of times when I'm in conversation, I actually translate when, for example, Zoraida will say God and Goddess, I translate that to my model of what my spiritual life looks like. And a lot of the arguments and conflicts and shit that you see out in the world is on the surface.
Yes.
People don't realize that the human experience is exactly the same. We're all talking about what our experience is, how we connect to our common, our family, how we go towards the things that matter to us. How are we meeting our needs? How are we supporting others around us? It does not matter at where you go in the world. People can connect at that level. And then what's left is the strategies on top of, hey, this is what I believe and this is what I do. And great, that's part of your experience, but we can translate that to, hey, this person is meeting her need. This person is needing his need. That's great. How's that working for you? Share so we can all learn, so we can all meet our needs in our own cool ways, creative ways.
Yeah. We could probably go on this conversation forever because it is so critically important. I do think now is probably a good time to shift to the last 4 questions that we love to ask all of our guests because it gives us a little bit more insight into you, into your perspective, into what has shaped you. It's also fun just to see how people answer differently. Zoraida, what is one of the most influential books in your coaching journey?
In my coaching journey, so the biggest influential book for me was A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. I mean, for me, that just shifted my perspective on pain body, on how we speak to ourselves and how we treat ourselves and how it comes out and it manifests on the body. That was like really huge for me.
I love that book. And what I call that book is actually, he gives you a psychological blueprint of the ego and how to recognize.
Yes. So that was like my whole introduction into spirituality for me. Right now I'm reading a book. It's called Healing the Shame That Binds You. It's by John Bradshaw. And I realized that I have a lot of guilt and shame from my childhood, to say that I lived in poverty. That's huge for me. I mean, my family wouldn't be too comfortable hearing me speak that way in a podcast, but I am authentic and I own my truth. And it's who I am. I come from abandonment. I had a father who created another family while he was married to my mother. And I haven't seen him in 50 years. So there's a lot of shame and guilt. Let's not forget, I removed myself from my family. It's been about 10 years. And I had to do it to save me. And so there was guilt and shame with that, which is getting so much better because someone said something to me the other day. And I said to myself, her response has nothing to do with you. She is helping her mother heal. And so these are her feelings on her experiences. This has nothing to do with you. So you may not like what she's saying, but it has nothing to do with you. And I let it go. And so I wouldn't have done that 10 years ago. And look, we can't pick and choose our families. I've always been the kid that said, why are you doing that? That's not right. I've always been a very empathetic kid and didn't know it. I've always wanted to heal the world, didn't know why. But now I own my truth. And so now I'm still working like every coach. I'll be working to the day I'm no longer passing to another earth, another world, but healing the shame that binds you has helping me be okay with the decisions I've made. Because self-love is not a bad word. It's not a negative word.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 influential books for me. Oh, and The Power of Now, which I read through my divorce. Also an Eckhart Tolle book. Got me through my divorce. So.
Awesome. You already alluded to this a little bit throughout your conversation. What are some of your hobbies? What are some of the things that you do right now for fun to kind of keep yourself fulfilled and de-stress?
So I've been listening to my 7-year-old. I had to reintroduce myself to that 7-year-old kid. and see what were the things that really made me feel internally, instinctually happy without thinking about it. And this happened through COVID. And I said, you know what? I love puzzles. I love word search puzzles. And I love those puzzles, those 1,000 pieces that you put together. So I've actually introduced them back to my life. And I'm actually working on a 500-piece puzzle with my 17-year-old. So that's been cool. But, you know, I like to spend time with friends, museums, art galleries, live entertainment has always been really big for me. So I like the opera, theater. Of course, I like reading because that's all I do. I'm in school for 2 certifications, so I read a lot. But I'm learning to be. Like, I'm literally sitting or just lying down and just being. And I'm really digging that. I didn't know how good it would feel, but it feels like this lightness is coming over me. And yeah, that's really, yeah, that's what I'm working towards. That makes me happy. That's part of my hobby now.
Cool.
And thanks for sharing that question. Like, what would my 7-year-old self, like, what did I like to do then? I think that's a really cool question that I don't think I've ever asked myself.
I'm going to have to bring some pigeons back.
Bring them. They'll be happy to see you.
No, really, I had like 22 pigeons.
They'll be welcoming you with open arms. Where you been, dude?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, that takes me back. Not the pigeons, but you know, for me it was cats. So little kitty cats. What do you believe separates successful coaches from the ones that fail, they give up, or they really never get started?
You know, that sounds like a question that I had a similar answer when someone asked me at Mind Valley, who are you? And that was a tough question. I've never been asked that. And I remember answering, I am a learner and I am a teacher. And so to your question, Dr. Sherry, I say, I am a learner and I am a teacher. And I encourage all coaches to learn and to teach. Because everything that they're absorbing and learning, they're teaching to others. And that's what the world needs right now, even more so than ever. Yeah. Coaches are really needed right now. And I know it seems to many that, oh, there's so many coaches. It's like inundated with coaches. But we actually need different types of coaches. We need life coaches. We need health coaches. We need cancer coaches. We need nutrition coaches. We need a spiritual coach, a workout coach. I mean, I just hired a nutrition coach, and I'm a nutrition coach because I don't know what I don't know. And I like to try out different modalities because I know I'm going to learn something. And I've already, for me, the nutrition, I am taking myself to a high place, but I want to take it to a higher place. And I want to be more accountable. So I hired a nutrition coach who's also doing some life coaching with me. I mean, again, it goes back to learning and teaching. Yeah. Don't stop.
And thank you for Zoraida for being such a good example of practicing what you preach. I think this has been a great conversation we've had. Last question. Where do you feel like the field of coaching is headed?
You know, it's hard to say without that crystal ball, but with everything that's gone on in the world in the last 10 years, and there's so many coaches out now, and they each bring something different that everyone needs. I can't say, but I know it's going to be huge. Like, it's going to be huge. If you can imagine 1/3 of the world healed, that's how I see it. I see a glorious life for many of us. I see enlightenment. I see genuine happiness, authenticity, such self-awareness. I mean, I see all those beautiful things. I can only imagine what life is going to be like in 5, 10, 15 years. I'm so excited. I want to be here forever because I want to see it and I want to experience it through my eyes, but I want to experience it through my children's eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. And the two things I pull out of that is, in addition to what you said, is coaching becoming even more transformative and more accessible.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need them. We need coaches more than ever.
Yeah.
Faisal, you want to close us out here as we wrap up?
And I want to thank you, Zoraida, for being on the call and sharing vulnerably and openly. And I think what you're doing is incredibly needed, and maybe you will inspire other coaches or who need to go out there and put themselves out there, who are cancer coaches or otherwise, that it's a disservice to them and to others that they're not putting themselves out there, because a big part of growth actually happens when you put yourself out there and start to serve others. And in the process, and you start to grow together with others. So really want to thank you. And also for those who are watching, make sure you share this, because this is a powerful message, not only for coaches, but for others who are listening. And part of what we're doing is also normalizing the coaching conversation, normalizing that coaching is a thing to stay. It's not a fad. It's not something that came here and it's just going to go away. It's one of those things like when psychology came into the picture. In the beginning, nobody thought anything of it. And like when you listen to the founders of it and you watch, like you see very similar conversations that coaches have right now. And I'm thinking about conversations of Freud, Carl Jung, these guys, when they used to in the books that they've written, like it was just as unknown as the coaching is right now. And coaching will become a very strong field as we move forward, because there's a very high need. There's a demand for it. And really for those coaches who haven't put themselves out there, who haven't reached out. And that doesn't mean everybody's going to put themselves out there on social media. It might mean that you just do a local thing. Maybe you reach out to a couple of family and friends. Maybe you reach out to your network. Hey, I really want to support people. This is my vision. Can you connect me with somebody? Maybe that's what it looks like. Or it's a different version, but the idea is that it's needed, it's in demand. Not only can you serve people, but you can make a pretty lucrative career out of this as you move forward, because there's a higher demand in the marketplace. And definitely share this with coaches, with anybody you think that's going to benefit from this. Zoraida, did you want to share where people can find you in case they have family or friends they want to refer to you?
Oh, yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn under Zoraida Morales. I am also on Instagram. I'm now using my Instagram for business purposes. So I'm under z.morales2018, because 2018 is the year that my spirituality shifted. So for me, that number is very significant. And I'm building a website. It's going to be launching by September 30th. It's www.zoraidamorales.com. And I'm going to be sharing nutrition. I'm going to be sharing ways that you can mentally help yourself and others, and self-loving, because I am all about self-love. And, you'll find me on podcasts like these. I'm so grateful for you both to invite me here. My heart is tingling. Thank you. And so are my fingers.
All right. We made Zoraida get excited. That's really cool. And thank you for sharing all that. And we'll have the links below in the post wherever you see it, whether it's on YouTube or podcasts or social media, other social media areas, because this is going to go everywhere in different forms. And make sure you guys check out our free Facebook group, where we continue these conversations with other coaches who are from around the world, who have just as powerful mission as Zoraida to serve the world. And one thing we know, that as coaches, you need to be around other coaches to help you not only understand your path, but to support you to keep moving forward. So you can join our community page. I'll have the link below. It's facebook.com/coaching mastery community. You just have to fill out three questions, and we'll let you in as long as you're impact driven coach and you're a coach that is there to serve. I think you're going to get a lot of value. And we actually air one of our sessions live on Thursday for 1 hour, and conversations around coaching mastery and business mastery. And just that, you will get a lot of value, and you'll get to connect with other coaches who you can potentially collaborate with and work together. Aside from that, make sure you like and share this video or post, and we'll see you next week, same time.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.